So last year I interviewed two people, Kayla and Ben, for Spina Bifida Awareness Week in the UK, and it was immense. It was just really nice to talk to other people who are living with spina bifida. And so this year I thought I would do something very, very similar. And there is this absolutely amazing bloke, Joshua, who goes under the name Spina Bifida Skater on Instagram. And I came across his stuff probably 12 months ago when I was looking at all of the Spina Bifida awareness stuff. And this guy is just absolutely immense. And I realised that I needed to reach out to him and I needed to have a conversation with him just to find out more about his journey and his experience and his life. The guy on the outside, he has such a positive mental attitude, and he really helps people, and he's really a big advocate of supporting lots of youngsters with spina bifida and really giving people the opportunity to just be the best that they can. Now, in this interview, we have a chat about various things. He talks about his surgeries when he's younger. He talks about mental health issues. He talks about the work where he actually helps other people. And he's just infectious. You're going to love this. It's not a short interview by any means. This is a grab a cup of tea, sit down and enjoy time with him. But I tell you something, find him, reach out to him, have a conversation with him. The guy is brilliant. And I learn all about this, which you'll find out more about in the video. So get comfy and enjoy. I spotted your stuff, obviously from, God, it must have been last year. It must have been about spina bifida awareness last year. Or if not last year, the year before. And it was, I saw your stuff and it's like, spina bifida skater? Wow, this is cool. What's all this about? And I started following your stuff and I was like, whoa, this is really, really, really interesting. And I had a conversation with a couple of people last year. I had a conversation with a girl called Kayla Olden who has spina bifida, who's out in the US. And we had a really good chat. She didn't want to do video, which was cool. And we had a really good chat over audio about the stuff she's doing. And she's very heavily involved kind of in mental health awareness as well, which was really interesting.
Nice.
And then I had a conversation with a mate of mine, Ben, who I didn't realise he's a DJ. So he actually sets up kind of audio for events locally.
Yeah.
And he spoke at an event I went to, and he said, well, I've got spina bifida, and I was like, me too. Right, we need to have a conversation. And I spoke to him for spina bifida awareness last year. So I saw your stuff, and it's like, right, we've got to have a conversation in October.
That's
got
super
to have
cool.
a conversation.
And I noticed you're really into like riding bikes and stuff.
Yeah.
Kind of seems to be a theme in your life, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm not good at walking, so.
But that's what's beautiful. I love riding bikes. I'm probably more, I tell people all the time, I'm more comfortable on a skateboard, which probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense for a person with spina bifida. I'm more comfortable on a skateboard than I am, and take all tricks out of the picture. I'm not talking about doing tricks. I'm not talking about grinding and going in the air and slamming and doing willies and what willy-nilly stuff. I'm talking about just cruising down a hill, a nice mellow declined road on my skateboard, or even in a bowl where all I'm doing is just carving around. That hurts my body less than walking my dog around the block. Because when you're walking, you're hitting hard pavement, knees, ankles, hips, constantly, what do they call that? High impact.
Yeah.
But when you're standing level on a skateboard and you're able to adjust your body in a bending movement that feels comfortable to you, you got all the gear on the pads, the knee pads, and I got my hip pads now. I'm an old fart, man. I level up when it comes to safety gear. And you're just pumping around and the wheels are rolling. There's such a fluidity to it and such a low impact in a way, because your trucks and your wheels kind of take the impact of the ground. Your feet don't. Your feet are on just level playing field. So they're not going up and down, up and down, up and down, joint, joint, joint. You're just cruising. And so I feel less pain if I would stop at that. But you see my feed, I don't stop at that. I do tricks, I skate bowls, skate half pipes. I'm grinding curbs, whatever. So I have a lot of slams. I'm in so much pain today from a slam I took like 2.5 weeks ago in Hawaii. I was skating a bowl and I went to do a trick on this little vert tombstone thing, and I slammed straight to flat bottom. But one day I didn't put my hip pads on, straight to my hip on concrete, 46 and a half years old. Not the best move with spina bifida, but and I'm still, it's hurting. I walked my dog just about an hour ago and I was like, man, my hip hurts.
But you keep moving, and
But you got to keep moving. That's the
yeah,
thing. What's
yeah.
that? Is it Einstein? Like, always in motion? Or how's it go? It's like, object in motion stays in motion, right?
Yeah. First, is it Newton's
Like,
first law? It's Newton's first law or Newton's second law,
or
isn't it? Not...
Newton. I didn't pay a whole lot of attention in science class, but
Well, no. I only know about it. I only know about it because
if you don't use it, you lose it, right?
exactly. Well, I mean, the thing is, I'm a podiatrist, so my trade is looking after feet and legs.
Oh,
Which
okay.
is so I kind of ended up in that because of my spina bifida. So
Yeah, that's
you showed
interesting.
you showed a picture of your foot because you've lost a toe, haven't you?
Oh, I lost my toe. I almost lost another toe a few years ago because I get, as you well know, with spina bifida, we have paralysis throughout our body,
Yep.
different paralysis for different levels and different people. I mean, that's why they call spina bifida the snowflake condition, because there's no two alike, even though the level of damage could be the exact same, you're going to have different nerve endings
Yeah.
affecting totally differently. One of my paralysis is in my feet. And when I was, I think it's an interesting story. Back in the 80s, my parents, we didn't have a lot of money or nothing. So like I was a skater of all things that I decided to go for is skateboarding, like one of the most grueling, hardcore activities out there with a kid that can, took forever to learn how to walk. But I was skating in Converse All-Stars, the canvas shoe that's real thin,
Yeah.
not a whole lot of ankle support. So I don't know why I picked that shoe, but it's because everything else was so expensive. And we could get those at the, cheap store for probably $20 back in the day. But what happened is doing tricks. I was more of a street skater. My first 20 years of skating it was all about street skating, doing flip tricks and ollies and whatever. And that you get this ollie hole on the side of your shoe, and it's a hole that would wear out. And they make skate shoes now with like ollie pads and extra thick rubber and suede and leather over that spot. But back then, these Converse aren't skate shoes. They're just whatever. They were like basketball shoes from the 50s or something. And I got a hole in my shoe, and the numbskull that I am, I was 18, I want to say 18 years old. I was like a sophomore, junior in high school. I go home, I have a bloody foot or bloody toe because I can't feel it. I know I
Yeah.
see the hole in my shoe and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I got a hole in my shoe, whatever. I take my shoe off. I see the blood on my sock. I take my sock off. There's a hole in my toe where the grip tape has just kind of rubbed it raw. Just kind of like a really gnarly rug burn, but it's grip tape, which is really abrasive. So now I got this hole in my toe. I take a shower. I wash it up. I don't think anything of it. I put shoe goo, which is this like rubber cement type stuff that you'd put on your shoes to patch them up to make your shoes last longer. All my skater friends would have the ugliest shoes because we just goo them up. I gooed it up, put my sock back on, went out and skated some more that same day. And I think what happened, or no, you know what? I think I'm telling the story wrong. I think I didn't shower and clean up until after the whole day was over. I think what happened is I went home, got some shoe goo with the original bloody sock and the hole in the sock, just gooed up my shoe thinking, oh, I just got to put a patch on this. Went out and skated some more. There lies the problem. The goo chemicals got into my toe. So being an open sore that it was, I can't feel it. I'm not thinking anything of it. I'm just out getting my thrash on. I come full circle, like I want to say a week or two later, skateboarding my half pipe that I used to have in my backyard. And I jacked my knee up. Probably, I think it was something minute, like, pulled a ligament or sprained it or whatever. But I go to the doctors for my knee because my knee hurt. When the doctor took my sock and shoe off, He's like, what's up with your toe? I'm there for my knee, not for my toe. And he's like, I'm just like, oh, that's just a sore that I got, and it's nothing. Don't worry about it. It doesn't hurt. He's like, I don't know. That looks pretty gnarly because it was all swollen and like fat and red and whatever. And I just thought I was going to have an ugly baby toe for the rest of my life. I didn't really care. I'm some young punk teenage skateboarding kid that like, who cares about a toe? It doesn't hurt. Must be all right. Then he points out this red line that's going up my ankle. He's like, see that red line? That's blood poison, or that's infection. I'm going to x-ray your toe while we're here. Since we're getting your knee looked at, let's just do both. All right. I come back in, we do all the x-rays and whatever. Come back in, he's like, I got good news and bad news. Good news is your knee is going to be okay. Ice it, rest it, elevate it. You just sprained it. Just stay off of it for a week or two. Cool. Bad news is your toe is going to stay with us. I'm like, come again? Meanwhile, this lady's coming in. She's bringing in the saws, the needles. He's like, so yeah, this is going to sting a little bit. And he like injects my toe with the numbing whatever, fires up the saw. And I'm like, whoa, what's going on, dude? He's like, yeah, we have to amputate. I'm like, don't I get a say in this? He's like, there's nothing to say. Your toe, the bone in my toe was gone.
Yeah.
It had been so infected that it, for lack of a better medical term, disintegrated or eaten it up, the chemicals. And on the spot, 10 minutes later, I didn't have a toe. I went in there for my hurt knee and I walked out 9 toes. I'm like, well, shoot. And then I'm like, well, do I get to keep it? I'm a weird kid. I'm like, do I get to keep my own toe and put it in a jar and take it home or look at it or whatever? He's like, no, we want to study that. Thank you. We want to study that and see like what happened. I never did hear back what happened, and the rest is history, but I've been a 9-toed freak ever since. And 2 years ago, I had the same exact scenario on my other baby toe on my left foot, swollen, red, but I paid attention, with age comes wisdom. I'm looking at it, I'm like, this seems awfully familiar. Maybe I should go to the doctors. And I did. And it turned out I had to be hospitalized for, I want to say like 4 or 5 days and have a surgery on that toe to release the infection, etc. And then they told me you may lose it. It was, even though I paid attention, even though I seek medical help this time around, that's how bad it was. And luckily, I'm still 9-toed. Thought I was going to be 8-toed, which in a way I was kind of excited about, which is really demented. I was like, oh, now I'll be equal. I'll be even. Maybe my balance will be better because I'll be 4-4. But I'm still 5-4, so I'll take it. Whatever.
You see, the classic medical kind of person in me knows that your pinky toe on the right had osteomyelitis, which is an infection of the bone. So it just the infection gets to the bone, destroys the bone, and once you're down that route,
and it's your tiniest one, so it probably goes fast. Yeah,
exactly. And your neuropathy, so your loss of sensation meant you didn't feel it, you didn't worry about it. And it reminds me, when I was 20, I went to Paris with my dad and a couple of his mates. And I was very drunk and I walked around Paris for miles and miles and miles.
Oh no.
Didn't realise that I'd got neuropathy on my left foot. Hadn't clocked it at that point. Ended up with a massive blister which ulcerated underneath. So I had a huge ulcer.
And that's all
20.
it can take is just a popped blister. I think that's what happened this last time. It wasn't a hole in a shoe. It wasn't a chemical like the first story. It was just, like you said, a blister that just kept blistering. And because you and I can't really feel it, maybe the blister got a little dirty, a little sweaty or whatever.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, you're like, wow, this is a little bit more serious than I thought.
The thing is, I can feel pain, but when I feel it, because it is reduced so much, when I feel it, I know it's a problem.
By then, it's an issue.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's like I can feel it. I can feel it a little bit.
That literally just happened. I think that's why you mentioned sorry, I got stupid ADD. Like, I'm going to be all over the place, by the way. And I'm drinking caffeine, so that's not going to help. But that being said, you mentioned that I had posted a picture. What that picture was about is that I have a hole in my foot currently right now,
Yeah.
going on about 3 weeks or so, from Hawaii, because we just got back about 8 days ago. And when I was there, I made the mistake one time. This is how careful us guys with spina bifida have to be. Whole time I was there, I either had flippers on because I was snorkeling, shoes on because I'm walking, or safety water socks. Like the neoprene kind of slip on with a little traction. I have to do that because I can't feel my feet. When I was a little kid, my mom would always stress, Joshua, put your shoes on. And the numbskull that I was, I'd go out and see the neighborhood kids running around barefoot, and I wanted to be like everybody else. So I'd flick my sandals off. I'd go run around, totally forget to put them back on, and I'd walk back in the house. This is like the 70s, early 80s. There'd be blood all over the kitchen floor. My mom would be having a heart attack, and you're like, what did you do this time? And there'd be like, pieces of glass in my foot or whatever. Henceforth, I should have listened to her. So now at 46, I try to keep my feet at all costs. But one day, me and my dad were kayaking in Hawaii, and we're in the kayak, snorkeling and kayaking and snorkeling, getting in and out of the kayak. And we finally decided to dock in this little inlet area that we just want to take a little break and watch the sunset or whatever. And because I had my flippers on and flippers off, flippers on, flippers off, I just hopped in the kayak with no shoes on, because you're in a plastic kayak. There's nothing going to hurt you. But I totally just gapped it, ADD, whatever you want to call it, hopped out of the kayak onto the lava rock, because the island's made out of old volcanic rock, which is really sharp and dark and black and edgy. And I hopped out to take the kayak to shore, and I walked around for a minute on those rocks, and then I put my flippers on and jumped in the water and swam around. 2 days later, I noticed there's this big gaping hole in the bottom of my foot that I never felt. The only thing I can think of was that lava rock that I was stepping on that was sharp, but I can't feel it. So it must have punctured a hole in my foot. And from that moment on, my mom, everybody saw it. They were on me. There was a red line going on the top of my foot. And it's on the foot that I've already lost a toe. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to take this serious. I was doing Epsom salt baths every night with the hot water. I was putting antibiotic in the hole. And to this day, this has been 3 weeks now. Still have a hole in my foot. Still trying to get rid of it. The red line's gone down a bit. So it's like, it's a never-ending battle, bro.
No, you're right. You're right. And it is the smallest thing. It's the tiniest thing. It's that thing which just tips it over the edge, and you don't know what it's going to be. When COVID kicked in, when we first got locked down here, I wasn't cycling as much. I was walking more. Right. So I was going out doing my 15,000 steps a day or whatever it was, and I was losing toenails, because my spina bifida is mostly my left side. I was losing toenails.
Straight up, I lose toenails on the weekly. They turn purple and I pull them off.
Yeah. And it was just
over. Now she's used to it, but at the beginning of our marriage, she's like, "What the heck are you doing?" I'm over here just ripping toenails off and throwing them away. Like, I can't feel it.
Yeah,
they're just smashed, like, because of what you just said. I think mine's probably because of skateboarding more than walking, but I jam my toes so much they turn purple. And then
I get clawing on mine. So my left, is yours both? Is yours both sides?
Knuckling up my feet. Like my feet, if my feet were flat like a normal person, or normal, whatever, I'd probably be a half size bigger in shoe. I'd probably be like a size 10. I'm a 9.5 because my toes do that instead of that.
Yeah.
So it turns them, but it also knuckles them up, and they cram against the edge of the shoe. I don't know how they bruise so easy, but they just bruise. And toenails gone.
I love it.
Person I've talked to that's had that consistent problem.
Well, professionally I do it as well. So I've got all the equipment to do stuff. So I mean, I don't have a clinic anymore. I do completely different stuff, but I've still got those skills. So I get a toenail which is loose, and I'm kind of like there with the clippers and the scalpel, kind of getting it all off and loving it. And when I get bruised, because when I get bruised toenails, it bruises right the way back to where the nail grows from, behind the cuticle. So
Yeah.
I get this nail floating in this kind of blood. So
Oh yeah, and
I have to
it'll
pierce
get
it to squeeze it out.
it gets caught on your sock and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the worst, dude.
It's like, oh my
I'll
God,
be
it's come off
I'll
again.
be mid skate session. I'm like, ow, what was that? Oh yeah, it's just my toenail coming off. Which is weird because you can't feel it until you can feel it, but by the time you can feel it, the toe is gone. Because
Yeah.
there are some nerve endings in there that work,
Yeah.
but not enough to like stop the actual initial like damage. Like it's the craziest thing. Spina bifida is a. I've had it for 46 years, and I feel like I still learn new stuff all the time.
So when did you? I mean, when was kind of your sort of diagnosis of it? So I'm
At
you were born what 74?
74, yeah.
I'm born 73, so
Oh,
kind of
cool.
similar. Yeah, I'm 47, 47. Well, yeah,
Yeah,
47 now. So you've got. I mean, over here, they didn't pick up on my spina bifida. I was 20 months. In fact, I had my
really.
medical notes out the other day. So I was 20 months when I started walking. So I didn't walk up
Yeah,
until that point. But I was
that was the
talking at six
same.
months. So I was
I think
chatty. I was chatty young.
my mom. Let me ask my wife because she, like I said, she's the brains. Hey, when you asked my mom when I could walk, what did she tell you? Wasn't it like 2 years or something? So yeah, kind of similar to you, about 24 months or go, give or take. You know, 1 year olds are usually starting to walk a bit. I think
Yeah,
2 year olds, you're a toddler and you're cruising around. Like that
yeah,
started to kind of be able to get up and be somewhat mobile, which in
yeah,
its, as you well know, with spina bifida is an anomaly because we're not even guaranteed to walk. I mean, they were telling my mom before she had me, yeah, your kid's never gonna walk. He's not, all this negative crap. Like, and unfortunately and sadly enough, some of that stuff is true for some
mm,
of us. I guess they have to cover all bases, so they just give the parent like worst case scenario, and it really doesn't give a young mother a whole lot of hope. My mom was 17 when she had me, and she was like, wow, like my kid's not gonna ever have a good life, never leave home. I'm always got to take care of him. He's never gonna walk. He's gonna be in diapers forever. And some of that stuff is true. But for you and I, and for me and personally, I obviously they were wrong about that. And if they had it their way, unfortunately, oftentimes that leads to the conversation of abortion, which just aggravates
yeah,
the crap out of me because first of all, and I'm not here to get political by any means. That's not my agenda. I don't believe in abortion, um, but that's not a conversation we need to worry about having. Uh, so to me, it just and when I see all these children that I hang out with that are in wheelchairs that I've taught how to skateboard, that can't walk, that surf, that like do all these awesome things, even in their wheelchairs, take those extracurricular activities out of the way. The fact that they're in their wheelchairs skating bowls and doing dancing and just doing amazing things. I have a friend named Aaron Wills. He's kind of world famous now because he's on the Nitro Circus and he's in a wheelchair and he does double backflips on these mega ramps. And it's just like,
yeah,
and all of those parents of all of those kids were told the exact same thing that they told me almost 50 years ago. It's like we kind of need to change the dialogue that like, look, there's a lot of rad people out there that chose life for their child, and despite these spina bifida and all these negatives that you've laid on the table, are living fulfilled, awesome, great, inspiring lives. They're living beyond their limits. They got PMA, they got positive attitude, they're pushing beyond, the pain and the medical crap, and just rocking the best they can with the cards they were dealt. And
yeah,
there's and all all these lives that would have not been around just breaks my heart because I have some of the raddest friends. You and I being one of them. Like I think I'm a pretty rad dude. This rad dude wouldn't be here right now if some of that information would have been taken to the extreme that they suggested, of
yeah,
aborting a baby and all of that. And it just kills me. Like, I was not supposed to get married. I was not supposed to leave home, yada yada yada. I've traveled all over America, different foreign countries. I've been married 10 years now. I just had my 10-year anniversary. I I do the things I want to do. And yeah, there are limitations. There's things we can't do. And I use the word can't loosely because I feel like where there's a will, there is a way. You just don't do it like someone else. So
Yeah.
there's things that I've struggled with way more than the average Joe down the block, skateboarding being one of them. I mean, and yet, look, I've been doing skateboarding for 30 years, but it took me the longest time to even stand on a skateboard because of my mobility discrepancies, my crooked legs, my lack of calf muscle, my numbness and paralysis in my feet. Like all of those things led to I had to learn how to skateboard on my knees, and eventually I could get to where I could stand, but it took sometimes holding onto a fence or a bar or a stair or a handrail or whatever, just to learn how to like tic tac and make my board go back and forth, or to ollie and pop it up into the air. Eventually, while all my other friends were just progressing miles beyond me, I would make little progressive strides, and now I think that's why I can't quit it, because I've got so much invested in it. Like, even though I've gotten banged up, beat up, and everything else under the sun, I don't, it's so much a part of my life now, and I put so much into it. I think if I quit, I'd be doing myself a disservice, It was like, and so now I use it as a tool to inspire kids. Like I was saying earlier, there's kids with spina bifida I work with that can't even walk, but I get them to skate a half pipe. And you tell that to people, they're like, huh? How does that work? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
He can't walk, but he can skate. Yeah, he doesn't skate like you. He skates his own beautiful, perfect way that works for him. And that's the thing about skateboarding in particular I was drawn to. There's no rules. It's not a team sport. You're not breaking any rules. You're not going to get penalized or get a foul or kicked off the team or whatever. It's you, the board, and whatever you can do with that board, your own self-expression. And if that means sitting on the board Indian style because your legs don't work, laying on your stomach like a surfer and using your arms to paddle back and forth up and down a ramp, because that's what works for you, then that's a-okay by me. Like, there's no wrong way to skate, and I love that. And I think that's was the initial draw for me. And then the camaraderie and the brotherhood and the acceptance that kind of goes along with that activity. Surfing's a lot the same. Surfers and skaters are very like all inclusive. Come one, come all. If you want to hang with us, all you gotta do is just roll. Like, it don't have to look pretty. It don't have to be a certain style. You don't have to look a certain way. You don't have to be a certain age, a certain level of skill. You don't have to be able-bodied or disabled. There is no boundary there. It's just free for all. I love it. I think that's what I try to share with the kids, is just like, you do you. Don't worry about Johnny on the block down the street. He does him, you do you. We can figure it out. If that means we got to get an extra wide board and bigger wheels and padded gloves because you're going to have your hands on the ground as your legs or whatever, we'll figure it out, and just showing them that it's possible. And I think that's where it warms my heart. As I get older, I can do like a smidgen of the tricks that I used to do 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. My trick box gets smaller and smaller as I get older, but the joy and the passion and the excitement that it brings me, and it's almost my go-to therapy, the mind space that I get into when I'm skating with my friends, the socialization of it, just being outside, getting that adrenaline going, the vitamin D from the sun, and the endorphins of the movement, like you said earlier, just moving and the body. It's so fun to me that I take it with the licks that I get. I keep smiling, and I want to give that to the next generation, that like, you're going to be told a lot of negative things having spina bifida. You're going to be told there's a lot of things you can't do. Don't buy into that hype. You control your universe as far as what you can do in life and how great your life is a lot of that's up to your mindset. You know, if I bought into the hype that I'd never date and never get married, I probably would have never pursued a relationship, you know. And
Yeah.
like I said, I'm married 10 years now, been together almost 13. And I like to be told I can't do something. And then I tell people, I'll tell you when it's done. Go ahead, doubt me. I use that as fuel, man. I love it when people, I don't want to say I love it when people are negative because I don't like negativity. But if someone is negative towards me and towards something that I'm pursuing or I'm passionate about, I use that as almost like a positive fuel.
Mm.
It kind of lights a fire under me. Like, all right, well now I'm gonna just do that and then some. It pushed.
It's really interesting though. I mean, you got me thinking about my kind of childhood. And I got a mum who's a nurse, or was a nurse. I've got a dad who works in insurance. Very physical, very active. Used to run marathons. Used to go,
Oh
goes
wow.
still goes to the gym now. He cycled. I mean, I've got memories of holidays in my late teens when we went to south of France, and he would run up from the south coast of France near Saint Tropez up into the hills, and I'd cycle up.
Oh
And
wow.
I know that. I mean, we got walking at 20 months, a diagnosis of I got a club foot, so that caused a few issues to start off with. Two
And
lots of
that's where
surgery
is that where your feet turn inward, right?
where it kind of comes under, yeah.
Kind of
So
yeah.
yeah, so I've got a club foot on the left, which is then they swapped some tendons over for me. So I had surgery before I went to school for that. I had surgery on my back as well to kind of plug the nerves back in. And to be fair, for the 1970s, they did a good job. They did a very, very good
Yeah.
job. And but I don't recall. I wasn't good at sport. I wasn't good at football. I wasn't good at rugby. I wasn't good at athletics. And I've still got certificates from my athletics from
Me
40
neither.
years ago, where it was like 1 star out of 5, and it's like that's all I wasn't any good.
I hated school sport when we
Yeah,
team stuff.
couldn't
It,
stand it. But
I
my
was always the
parents,
last guy picked.
yeah, oh yeah, absolutely, all the time,
Like,
all
oh,
the
that
time.
guy sucks. He can't run worth crap.
Yeah, he's crap. He's crap. We'll have him if we
Yeah,
have to have him. Yeah, but my parents are really cool because they never ever said they never kind of wrapped me up in cotton wool and said don't do something, and they'd almost let me kind of fall over and hurt myself or do something and get injured, rather than say no don't do it. And I in some ways as a
right.
parent, I've got 3 kids. Some ways as a parent, I'm maybe a little bit overcautious with mine, which I think is just something you have to really work with. But I
Hmm.
never grew up. I never came through my childhood thinking. In fact, I didn't really realise that I had spina bifida probably until I was a teenager, and
That's wild, dude.
it was like okay, why is it I'm crap at sport? Well, you got spina bifida. Okay, well that makes sense now. And it was only when I got to 20 when I had my ulcer that I realised what kind of a problem it was, and that was the point I realised I wasn't invincible, that I could be killed, and it was a bit of a sobering thing. But I
Right.
never remember growing up being told that I couldn't do anything. I knew there were things which are different, and I knew sort of during my late teens, my early 20s, I knew I'd got one leg much slimmer than the other, and
Right.
I didn't like wearing shorts. Now, I mean, I'm wearing shorts here at the moment. I'm kind of
Oh,
like, who
I was,
cares, you know?
dude. Shorts was a very sore subject for me as a kid because I had the external rubber collective urine collecting bag on my
Yeah,
leg. So back in the 80s, like mid 80s, junior high, you know, I was so stoked when board shorts came out and the shorts got longer. And that was like a fad, like the OP and the Hobie and all those brands, the surfer brand, TNC. And they were like down to your knees and neon colors. I'm like, heck yeah. Now I can wear shorts. And I still had the bow chicken legs and all that before my legs were straightened, but you couldn't see my rubber bag. And up until that point in life, when you had to wear the Nike type dolphin shorts or whatever they call them, the jogger with
yeah.
the this and the stripes, and they had the little loops up the side. My whole bag was exposed. So in junior high, I was called bag fag, piss pocket, what they call me filthy names. And those are the two that really ring out. I know there was a lot more. And then they'd punch me in gym class, or I'd go to the, what is it? The locker room when you're done. And when showering became a thing, you know, in
Mm.
class, I'll take showers together. I'd have to take my thing off, but you know, the knucklehead immature school children know that, like, well, he pees into that thing and he's taking it off to go shower, and they make really crude remarks about, you know, I'm peeing all over the floor and I'm gross and dirty and smelly and yada yada. And I was always the last guy out of the locker room because I would insecurely just sit there and kind of wait for everyone else to be done. So I just didn't want to deal with it. And then I was always late to my next class, which drew a lot of attention to me because, you know, you're walking in late, but then half the guys in the class are the guys that were just in the locker room. They're making comments in front of girls. I'm a teenager. It's awkward. You're going through puberty. You got pimples. You're like, it was just, it was, that's when I got suicidal and depressed and just like over it. Like I just didn't want to live that life anymore because I just felt so horrible and so embarrassed and stuff. So I don't know. I got off on a tangent. We were talking about shorts and growing up and your leg. Oh, you said something about shorts, and that triggered my brain because that's such a. I just remember shorts being a really big part of my life that I never wanted to wear them because of that, because of the way people treated me. And then when board shorts came out, I was like, heck yeah. And then board shorts were very synonymous with skateboarders and surfers, and I was kind of going in that direction, so it kind of went with my style. So I was like, rad, you know.
But that stuff, but you know, your experience though is it's not a good experience by any means, and it shows what children are like. It shows what teenagers are like. But if there's a lesson in that, there's two lessons in there for me. One is if you're the person who's on the receiving end of that, just just do you, just be you, and just keep positive because it doesn't say anything about you. It says something about them. And for those people
Right,
who are doing it, just stop for a moment and think about how your attitude affects things and flip it around and think what would it be like for you? Because
right,
I was really lucky. I grew up in a very kind of middle class area, very, no particular issues at all. Yeah, a bit of bullying at school, but I'm 6'2", so
dang.
there was a point where I was taller than pretty much everyone else in my class, and didn't get too much grief. I got occasional
So
bit of
they
grief,
weren't
but
going to mess with you too much.
well, exactly, not no too many problems at all, but. It was. I think there was just a difference in area, so I didn't get too much grief, and I've been really really lucky, and I think most of the worry and concern I've had is stuff which sits in my head and stuff where I
Right,
think someone's going to see that, and someone's going to see me trip over my foot when I'm tired, or
right.
like when I first met my wife, I stayed over at her house for the first time, and I had my second ulcer at that point. So I had an ulcer at 20 and had an ulcer at 29 ish. Yeah, it was 29. And I said, do you have? She was a nurse. We were both nursing at the time, and I said, have you got a rubber glove and some tape? And I think she thought, oh, hello, we're getting a bit kinky now. And it was like, no, not like that, because I had to put it over the dressing on my foot to keep it dry
Yeah.
while I was in the shower. And I was really self conscious about kind of showing her my foot because she's a nurse, she deals with that kind of stuff, but actually showing her my foot because we were in a relationship. And it was just, and it was no bother at all. It was never an issue at all for her, but it was what I
Obviously,
played in my
you
head.
said she's your wife, so you got married to that girl.
Yeah, absolutely. Three children,
That's
two
awesome.
dogs, a cat, four chickens later, and we're.
Dang.
So, but you talked about that whole. People would never expect you to ever get a girlfriend, get married, be successful,
Oh yeah.
be who you are, and but I think that actually having spina bifida is part of what has made me the person I am. It's given me an opportunity. It's given me a
Full
story.
on.
One hell of a story. One hell of a
I wish
story.
I wish often I could go back and talk to, someone else on Instagram asked a question the other day. It was just some my story thing, and it said, "Would you like to go back and fix one thing in your life, or the other option is go ahead 5 years and see where you're at. And I was like, I want to go back, and not because I have regrets. It's not a regret. Oh, I regret. I need to go fix this situation in my life or whatever. Because like you, I feel that the fortitude and the strength within me, the inner security that I have today, the positive mindset, all of that stuff was developed from those hardships, those troublesome times, that angst, the triumph over tragedy, the whole, you know, storyline that we hear 1,000,000,000 times: triumph over tragedy, overcoming. But there's some truth to that I think without all those struggles, I wouldn't be as compassionate and caring and empathetic to other people's plights, and especially the children. I love working with special needs kids. And it doesn't even have to be spina bifida. I teach kids with autism how to skateboard. I just love being there for them because I didn't have that myself. I am big brother. I'm the oldest of my siblings. I was the first child. My parents had my brother and sister together. I have a different father that started my life out, but my adopted dad's been the dad that I've known my whole life. But there was a genetic bond, I think, for my parents, for my brother and sister, maybe a little bit more so than there was for me, because I kind of just came with my mom when she got married. So, and I was the kid with all the problems, all the medical issues and whatnot. So I grew up kind of feeling isolated or just by myself more so in life. And so I guess the school of hard knocks is what just kind of rose me up to the person I am today, that I want to be there for others that I didn't feel like necessarily I had growing up. And I'm not just talking about dad. My dad was a cool, good dude, took care of us. But that emotional, what's the word, support, bond of building someone up. I felt like that in my life because of all the bullying and just all the insecurities and all the hardships of youth. I don't ever want someone that comes into my life to have to experience that. And if I can have just the smallest impact on their life in a positive way, and to give them some redirection if they're going through some of those same things that I did, if I can like sway that in a positive, direction, I've done my job, and I feel really good about it, because I remember how horrible it felt to be when you get to the point where you're like, I don't want to live anymore. You're staring death in the face and you're okay with it. Not that that's what you want, but you just feel like that's the only out. It does something to the rest of your life. It's like, I always joke about it now. I can kind of lightheartedly joke. It's not really funny, but I can lightheartedly joke. I sucked at dying, so I'm going to rock at living, because clearly I wasn't successful at the whole suicide attempts. And I think that's when things just twisted for me. Like, what am I doing? Like, why should I rid myself because of the inadequacies of others? Like you said, it's their issue. It's not an issue within me. I've done nothing wrong. I was just born this way. And this idiot over here wants to like beat me down, call me names, bully me. He's probably getting picked. Now I can say this now as an adult, because I look back, hindsight. He's probably getting bullied, picked on, abused at home or by others. Yeah. And so looking at me as a weaker link because I've got an inadequacy physically or whatever, and he's going to latch onto that. Well, at some point, I flipped the script and started standing up for myself. And I can think of personal instances in my life where these guys were coming at me, and I just all of a sudden I started working out. I took gym class in school. I started breaking records with the part of my body that does work. My upper body was strong. I remember having second place bench press record my sophomore year in high school. And the first place guy was some Russian dude who was a wrestler, and I was second place. And they'd put your names up on the gym wall, like who's bench pressing what. And I let my numbers do the talking. And people started to kind of back off me, like, all right, this guy's getting a voice. He's stepping up. He's putting up the weights. We're gonna leave him alone, you know. And so I it was after the suicidal attempts and getting so low that I slowly started climbing. Once you're down here, the only other direction's up. And I feel like I've just made a steady climb up ever since. I mean, yeah, there's been some dips. Obviously, we were talking about 2 years ago. Yesterday was a mental health situation, but that had to do mostly with surgeries and opioids and painkillers kind of taking control of my mind. But all in all, I'm the PMA guy. Like, I just focus on the positives of every day. You know, that doesn't mean I don't suffer from chronic pain, bowel and bladder issues, embarrassing moments to this day. You know, I still wear diapers. I don't have the bag anymore. I have an internal artificial bladder. I've had to have replaced a bunch of times. I've had 38 surgeries to date, and I've got more coming. Which trips me out about you, that they didn't diagnose you for so long, which blows my mind. But you and I must have a little bit different levels of it, because I was born with a hole in my back and my spinal cord was exposed to the outside. And that's when they told my mom all the negative stuff. And then she's like, okay, my baby's going to have surgery right at birth. So when I came out of the womb, it was like operating table, close up the back, put the spine back in. He's probably not going to walk. He's not going to blah, 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 all the negatives. Obviously, they were wrong about a lot of that stuff. But when you asked me earlier, like, when was my diagnosis? I was diagnosed before I was born. Like, your kid's got a hole in it, you know, the ultrasound or whatever, what's that called when the baby's born? Not mammogram, something else. What's that called when they put the goo on the
ultrasound?
Ultrasound, yeah. The ultrasound showed that I had a hole in my spine. The nerve endings and the bones and whatever wasn't all fused together. There was a gaping hole. So, I was diagnosed right off the bat. I never had a period of time where it's like, oh, this kid doesn't have spina bifida. Like, I had it from day one, and then had that surgery, and bladder never worked, bowels never worked. So, like, the dating conversation you were talking about, the embarrassment, you know, being with a woman, like, my concerns were more about, and they have happened, unfortunately, but I'm open book about it. But I've, you know, being romantic with my wife, I've had times where I've had bowel bladder issues in the middle of lovemaking, which that'll knock your ego down a little bit, you know, like, you don't feel too sexy when that's going down. And luckily I have a rad woman that's like, hey, you know, it is what it is. You know, you take a shower, you clean the sheets, and try again, start over. Just pick up where you left off, and
you keep going. Keep on going.
That's the thing, is you have a good woman, I have a good woman, and having that support system now in my adult life is, you know, it's priceless. There's nothing to compare it to. And clearly the doctors are wrong about that too. I would never get married
Yeah.
or have a relationship. I had a lot of relationships, and this one's stuck and still with me. Just my ride or die, and we're hanging tough, and we still have our battles just like any other marriage. You know, you have all the normal stuff that you got to deal with, you know, differences of feelings and opinions, communication, and bills, and, you know, just living. But then you have the spina bifida stuff too, which presents a whole new case of problems. And with that spina bifida and chronic pain and embarrassing moments, even in my adult life, I struggle with mental health, anxiety, depression, social anxiety, all of those things too. But you just learn how to navigate it so much better with age and experience and maturity. And and just, you know, trial and error and figuring out what's the best way to keep pressing forward, you know, run with it. And each day is a new day, just one day at a time, sometimes 1 hour at a time. It just depends on how bad that day is, you know.
Yeah, sometimes it's one breath at a time, but
Exactly. And sometimes you just gotta close the doors, put on your favorite song or movie, and sleep the day away, and you know, turn the day off and start again tomorrow, because it's just that bad. But
that
you don't go in those
that's really
despair,
important.
you don't go to those teenage angst, black or white disparage thoughts like, oh, I'd be better off not living. Like, I don't have that mindset anymore. I know life is worth living, and I know where certain mental anxieties and depressions and things come from. That doesn't mean you can always control them, but at least I can cope better. And I have a certain set of skills now through experience on how to battle them and ultimately win. Sometimes they get you, but you still come out on top. You know, it's just like the best football team in the league. You know, they're not going to win every single game. They might win the Super Bowl too, but along the way, there's going to be some defeats. That's just life, you know. And you just take the wins when they come, and you celebrate those wins. Sometimes they're little wins. It could just be like, today I walked my dog. Yeah, I got to do this podcast from England. If the rest of the day sucks, at least I have those two good positive things. Having a nice, tasty, cold iced coffee my wife made me. I'm learning to appreciate every little small thing to be grateful for, when there's so many other people out there that don't even have those, you know. You just
The
drive
small
down
stuff, the
Long
small stuff
Beach and
every
you see
time.
her.
Small stuff
Exactly.
every time.
I mean, we live in Long Beach. I don't know how England is, but Long Beach has a lot of, especially now with the pandemic, people losing their jobs and everything. There's so much, what do you call it, homelessness. It's like, I drive down the streets not far from where I live, and I'm just like, man, I'd much rather be stressed out about how we're paying rent this month with my dog by my side and a woman by my side while the TV's on, and I'm laying next to my gal in this comfy bed, but I'm stressed about whatever, and maybe I'm in pain, but I'm not that gal down the street that's like laying on a concrete sidewalk in filth with no food, no bed, no TV, no iced coffee, no dog. Like, my heart just breaks when I see those people, but it also puts my life in perspective of all the things I should be grateful for. And that's where the PMA comes in. Looking at the glass half full instead of half empty. You know, a glass with a half filled glass is a half filled glass, but is it half gone or is it half full? And I always like that analogy, because if you think about it being half full, then that means you still have another half a glass of good stuff to drink instead of
Yeah.
worrying about stuff that's gone, you know. And I try to apply that in my everyday thinking, you know, and it helps.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I love it. I mean, your stuff I see on, it's Instagram. I love seeing it. I absolutely love seeing it. It's like I said before. It's literally like you get your phone and you look at it and it's like boom. It's just like this ray of sunshine. And
I appreciate that. Sometimes I think I share too much.
uh,
I barely even share a lot of the things I struggle with, but I dabble in it here and there. But I also try to fill it with, like, I'm also out here living my best life, you know, snorkeling with sea turtles and skating and surfing and traveling. But then I also, like, and today sucked because, you know, I'm in chronic pain, or I had a bowel problem walking down the pier with my wife on date day, or I got this hole in my foot that just won't freaking go away, and or whatever the case may be. I try to keep it real, but without it being a constant like, oh, look at all the woe is me, like, here's all the crappy things I deal with every day. It's more about, yeah, these things exist, but here's how I'm coping, and here's here's all the blessed things that are going on in my life too. Not to showboat, but more about life can be lived to the fullest despite your limits, your physical limitations, your mental limitations, you know, like I battled with sharing yesterday's post about 2 years ago today, I left the mental health facility, blah, blah, blah. Like, is that weird of me to share something negative that happened 2 years ago? Am I wallowing in the past? Am I trying to say, oh, woe is me, or hooray for me because I got over that? No, I intentionally shared it because I know so many people are struggling with it. And even personal friends of ours, and they shall remain nameless, but I got a call. My wife got a call 2 days ago from a friend who we share the same faith. She's a part of my local congregation here, and she's feeling the same way I felt 2 years ago. What led me to go to that facility, to get the tools to cope, to get a diagnosis, to figure out what was going on with me. In my personal case, it was an opioid addiction. It was no fault of my own. It was because I had 6 surgeries in like a 2-year period. And it was like surgery after surgery. That's a surgery like every 3 months or something. And painkiller, painkiller, painkiller. And then your body acclimating to the levels of the dosages. And then you take more and higher dose. And then next thing you know, your brain's super foggy. Your thoughts are starting to get dark. Your sleep is all screwed up. That doesn't help. You're up all night. You're sleeping all day. Your night up is down, black is white. Is like, it was nuts. And I didn't know what was wrong with me. But in my particular case, it was that helping me get off those night and day. I'm a totally different person. But to go back to this gal, this friend of ours, she reached out to my wife two or 3 days ago, asking her, like, because someone referred her to us because they knew that I had walked down that hall, so to speak, and that I had had that experience. So they thought, who better to go to than someone that's kind of been through it, and she wants to check into a facility and get the help that she needs. And so that's why I posted what I posted yesterday, because that made me think maybe there's other people out there, especially during this pandemic and all the craziness that's going on right now. Maybe someone needs to see that I did it, not because I'm special or cool or better or anything, but I'm just a human that went through that process. Here I am on the other side, a better, healthier, stronger, more physically fit person than I was 48 months ago, or whatever, 24 months ago. And you can be that person too if you are in fact struggling and in a dark place or needing help. There's no shame in that. I wrote that in my thing. I pretty much just copy verbatim what was written 2 years ago because I stand by everything that was said. Like, there's no shame in that game. You know, seek out help, call a friend, or just go to a facility. Here's a 1-800 number for suicide hotline, whatever. If I can have any effect on anyone who's struggling in that way, I may not have the psychology like words. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm just a dude that kind of went through it, and I still battle with it, but just know you're not alone. And so then I was like, you know what? I am going to share it. You know, I could have kept that to me, like, yeah, that was a rad triumph. 2 years ago today, I did that. That's awesome. Hey, honey, check it out. And we could have, you know, husband and wife talked about it, like had a tear and hug and been proud. I was like, you know what? I think other people need to see that. And I think it'll maybe, even if it just helps one person. And I know it did, because I personally shared that a friend was actually reaching out to us this week, ironically. And I'm praying and hoping she gets the help that she needs. And we're trying to communicate with her and kind of guide her. And she was going to go to the same facility I went to, but something to do with insurance didn't work out. But I know she's seeking help, and that really makes me happy. That I think the more of us that talk about these kind of things, the less stigma there is. And I think that's the best part. That's the most empowering thing we can do, is just be open. It's like, If you hurt your knee, we were talking about our feet and toes forever. And there was no second thought about that. And no one would bat an eyelash about that conversation. But you start talking about mental health and everyone's like, I don't know, it's weird. That guy must be weird. What's up with him? Why is he so off? Or whatever. There's like this weird, and I don't know where it started, probably centuries ago, but there's a stigma attached to mental health that's no different than dental health. You know, mental and dental, they rhyme. It's the body. It's the same. We're the same, whatever the word is. I don't know, body. It's the same body. So if your wrist hurts, your heart, you got heart palpitations, you have mental anxiety. It's like it all needs doctoring. And I don't know why one's looked at so much differently than the other. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. No, you're right. I think it scares people. You know, I think it genuinely scares people that when, you know, one of the things, I'm being British, we always ask the question, how are you? And everyone always answers, yeah, I'm fine.
Same here.
Inside, they're like, everything is really bad at the moment. And if you just flipped it and you just said, I'm struggling, I need some help with it, then people would be in a much better place. And, you know, the stuff you're talking about is, it's a place of vulnerability. And, you know, it's a lot of the stuff I've read from, there's a great woman called Brené Brown, Dr. Brené Brown, who talks about the power of vulnerability and the fact that when you go to that place of vulnerability and start to share stories from there, it's so much more powerful because you right. give people permission to talk about it. When you say, look, I'm talking about it, I'm you know, maybe not happy, I'm feeling vulnerable, I'm feeling a bit nervous about talking about it because people might think differently of me, but I know this is the right thing to do. It makes it okay for other people to talk about it and other people to kind of broach that subject.
That's what we got to keep doing, because as long as we make it not okay,
yeah,
it closets people, and that's the worst thing for them when they're going through stuff.
Yeah.
Feel like they're alone, they're isolated, they can't be open, they can't be, like you said, vulnerable, because they might get ostracized or people might shy away from them. And my viewpoint is, go ahead, shy away from me, ostracize me. You're just making it so much easier for me to know who my true friends are, and I can cut you out of my life. Not that I wish you ill or I'm gonna be mean to you, you know, I'm a loving human being to all people, but if you're not on my side of my well-being, and you can allow that conversation to be had, if I am going through something, or like if I feel inadequate to be vulnerable around you, then you're clearly not someone that I really need close in my life. And you just made it easier for me to decipher that, and that's fine. And I feel bad for you because nobody in this world is perfect, and no one's immune to mental health. It could hit you at any given time. The happiest, richest, most powerful celebrity-like people have battled with depression and lost. I mean, I don't even remember how many deaths we've had in the last couple of years. You know, the Soundgarden guy, the singer, Robin Williams. I know Owen Wilson tried killing himself. Like, I mean, the list is a mile long. There's people with bipolar disorder that are comedians, like Jim Carrey and some of these funny guys, that their whole existence is making other people happy and laugh, but yet inside they have to battle to stay that person. And no one would bat an eyelash twice to like get an autograph or photo with Jim Carrey, but if you want to sit in a room and just talk about some dark stuff with that same character, you might like, yeah, I'm not here for that. I'm just here for the party and the good time and the funny movie and the photograph and the autograph. But I don't want to really delve into like what's going on behind the scenes. And that's really sad, I think, and the more genuine people are, and I think the more vulnerable you are, the more you open up yourself to more genuine trueness that comes your way. And you may have less friends at the end of the day, if you can even call those ones you lost friends. I wouldn't. because to me it's like a analogy I heard the other day. Would you rather have 100 pennies or 4 quarters? I'd rather have 4 quarters because each one of those quarters holds more value than 1 penny. They both equal 100, but give me four solid rad friends that got my back, ride or die for the rest of my life, over 100 so-called friends that are just there for the good time or shallow surface, with very little value. I'd rather have the more valuable and less. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah,
and so
absolutely.
I'm living my life that way now. I'm not worried about fitting in or being popular or being cool or having the most or whatever of friendships or being invited to all the shindigs or whatever. That stuff used to matter to me because it kind of held. I held it as value to myself. Like, oh man, I didn't get invited to that. I didn't get invited to that. I'm not dating, but this guy is dating. I'm not having this much money come in from a job, but this guy or whatever. I would compare myself, and I always put it back on the value of what what my value was. Now I know my value is awesome. I'm one of those quarters. So if you have me in your corner, you got a solid dude, and I've got your back. As long as you don't full on, do me wrong or disrespect me and make, cause me some harm in my life or whatever. But if I'm your friend to the end, and I'd rather, that's what I want to attract, and that's what I want to put out. And part of that is being vulnerable. Some of my best friends that I have to this day are the ones that have we've had some dark times together. We've had some very heart to hearts, very open about not just mental stuff, marriage stuff, life stuff, negative conversations about things they're going through. And that's all right by me. I can take it. And I think because of, like, you and I, the way we were raised, the things that we've been through, it makes us a better listening ear and a person that can relate to people that are being that way, vulnerable and open. And I think that allows for real growth between friends and whatnot. Some shy away from it, and that's all right. Then they weren't maybe as close as you thought they were.
Mm,
That's
yeah,
okay.
yeah. I think you're right.
I'll take the 4 quarters any day over 100. Just
Yeah,
saying.
we don't have a 25 pence coin, so we
Oh,
we
you
have
don't?
no, we have what, 1p, 2p, 5p, 10p, 20p, 50p, and then a pound. So, but
Oh,
it's
crazy.
yeah, we have well, in fact now we don't no one uses, I don't think anyone uses money anymore. It's just tap
It's
tap
credit
tap
card, credit.
tap
Yeah.
tap. Yeah, it's this kind of thing. Tap 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 all the time.
It's
So
so crazy.
yeah. Well,
And
I
now
could I
there's
could
all that.
talk I could talk to you absolutely all day, but I have got to go and disappear.
We
But
have a wedding to go, a Zoom wedding at like
oh
3
man,
o'clock, and I got to go get my car from the mechanics. But I'm stoked we got to chat for a bit.